It's
Sorry, it was very sour. Go ahead.
I guess I gotta start over.
You're not sour. Did the sour blueberry like make you lose train of thought?
I don't know, just your disrespect.
Oh man.
Huh?
I'm 30 weeks pregnant. I'm freaking starving.
We'll eat then and then we'll finish.
No, I want to.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Marriage Mondays, where we spend Mondays talking about marriage. My name's Amir.
My name is Kamara.
And today we're going to talk about the reasons why we're having such difficulties getting married. Question of the week.
Why do you feel like it is so difficult, or what is the root cause of the difficulty Muslims face, not just Muslims, but people face, when looking for a spouse and when trying to get married? I put out like a questionnaire on Instagram and TikTok where I asked people, like, why you think it's so difficult for people nowadays to get married. And I have some of those answers, and we're going to read that after Amir and I talk, because I don't want their answers basically to sway our opinions.
So initially when we talked about having this discussion, we wanted to figure out some of the root causes or the root cause of why we're having such difficulties finding a spouse. And I think it ultimately comes down to Islam, but we wanted to talk about some of those outlying factors. So essentially I came up with about 4 or 5 different root causes. And Kumar, how many did you come up with?
Oh, wait, 4 or 5 root causes?
Yeah.
Now we're having multiple explanations?
So you know.
We'll see. We'll see how much come up.
See.
Yeah.
First, I guess one of the first root causes is kind of more of a funny one, but very serious at the same time. I think that that the numbers play a very serious role in being able to find a spouse.
What do you mean?
By numbers, I mean there are more women than men. For men, if you're able to develop yourself and as you age, you go in and you educate yourself, you increase your income, our options increase, right? And if a woman, if she does that same thing and she's focusing on herself, increasing her net worth and whatnot, and as she's aging, her options decrease. And then it's just coupled in the fact that women there already are more women than there are men. So it's just, honestly, I think for men, I think it should be easier for a male to find a spouse, because you have more options, right? If it's not working with one person that you're talking with, I think that men shouldn't over pursue on one individual when there's so many women out. I'm dead serious.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. So are you saying that because men have so many options that they should keep these doors open? Don't you think that's just going to cause them not to find someone? Because there's always going to be in the back. Yeah, because there's always going to be that thought in the back of their head. I have more options. What if I marry this person and then it's not going to work out?
I think that people put you invest your time and energy in someone, and that they may or may not even be taking that relationship as serious, right? Like, you're talking to this person, you like them, but you can't. She might not want you to talk with her family or things like that, right? Which goes back to following, religiously following or practicing, pursuing a spouse in the right way, and so. With that, it's I'm saying men don't need to over pursue in there. If she
women
doesn't,
don't need to over pursue that in that situation either. If someone is playing games, joking around, not wanting to take this to the next level, no one should sit there and be like.
But I think that for women it's even more critical, though, because there are less men out there. Women should understand that they definitely shouldn't over pursue for a guy if he's not being serious. Because there's less men, so as
hold on, are you telling women that if a man is playing games, they should not end it and pursue someone else because their options are limited?
I said they should end it.
Should
Quickly.
end it. Okay.
Quickly.
Okay.
Very
okay.
quickly.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Okay.
So I'm saying that, and I think that neither party should over pursue because one, there's a limited number of men.
Over pursue that one person.
Right. There's a limited number of men.
Okay.
And there's many women. So I mean, I guess it depends on how you view the cup as being half full or half empty, right? For women, I think that women shouldn't over pursue because there's not a lot of men out there, right? And men shouldn't over pursue because there are a lot of women out there.
Okay.
I think I mentioned it, but age and education.
Okay, let's talk about age and education for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about age and education for a second because it reminded me of this post that was made about our ISMS video, and not our video, but the ISMS project. And we did one in the project talking about ageism and how as women get older, they are labeled expired by the community. If you are between the ages of like 27 35, it's very difficult for you to find a spouse. And then as you get older, the more difficult it is, right? So we had this one man comment saying, oh, ageism is not something that just women suffer from. Men are being told that they're too old to get married as well. The only time a man is being told they are too dang old to get married to someone is if they're trying to pursue someone 18 years old. Why are you trying to pursue someone's 18? You're like 42. There's no reason for that.
I agree as well. What I'm saying, with age and education, as I mentioned before, as men get older and their education and their income increases, their options also increase for women, right? Because when women get older and they have higher educations, they're higher earners, right? There's a lot of men that
intimidated.
Yeah, or that they simply can't. So like for one, like a woman who's older, right? Most men don't necessarily want a woman who's older, right? So
we're not talking about. Okay, let's not talk about older. Let's say they're same age because this is what it is. They're not older than them. They are either 2 to 3 years younger than them or the same age.
Right.
So it's not older women. It's women the same age as them.
Yeah, the same age as them. But they might be making less. And yes, there are a lot of insecurities that come with that because, even in Islam, there's a lot of pressure that's put on the Muslim man to provide and be able to do all these things. Not to mention just, the dowry, you have to provide food, clothing, shelter, all of which you should be able to afford. But, not necessarily everyone is able to do that, right? So when you have a woman who can do that for you, for a lot of men, it's like, man, I'm not even able to fulfill my needs as a husband, right?
You mean his requirements? But I think men need to realize that it's not just finances you're bringing to a relationship. Like, if you ask any woman, if a man is stable, right? He don't got to be rich, but if he's stable and he's able to provide what she needs, food, shelter, clothing, and a comfortable lifestyle that she's used to, as well as the emotional connection, that is so important. And then it's like you have these men who are so insecure that they only focus on what they could provide financially when that's not even the main thing. If you are emotionally incapable or emotionally deficient, that's the problem.
Just speaking to the males out there who are making less, don't feel insecure about a woman making more than you. It's fine. It's probably a good thing.
It's really not a big deal.
Actually, it's not even probably. It is. It's a good thing, right? She's worked hard for her education, and she's put the time in to get to where she's at, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and if anything happened to you, she could take care of herself and her children and your children. The older you get and the more money you make, while it's easier for men, it is more difficult for women.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So money and education status makes it difficult for people nowadays to get married. By people, I mean women. It's messed up.
I think culture plays a big role in it.
Culture definitely.
Culture. So where you're from will kind of alter your status of living, right? So in America, for instance, Muslim males growing up, right? people who are born Muslim. A lot of us are seeking higher paying jobs, right? Hope that if I get a job in that field, I'll be able to provide for my family, right? At the same time, if you're from another culture or another country, you might be able to do certain things, or like, you might be able to be a teacher and also provide, right? Or you might be able to do things that you couldn't do in America and still provide for your family. So like there's that culture as well, and then there's obviously culturally where we talked about last week, where it's like that brings in your race, your
oh, okay. So you're saying like
race and ethnicity,
cultural pressure influences and basically dictates who we can and cannot marry based on like the standard of the standard of who's considered financially stable, who's considered like beautiful, who's considered especially when it comes to people who want to like marry outside that culture, outside like the family, where it's like that's not really encouraged. So cultural demands or cultural expectations really plays a huge role in how or like why people are finding it difficult to get married.
We try and do our best to look past culture and allowing culture to affect who we're pursuing for marriage. The last issue that I wrote down was personal issues, meaning like just internalized insecurities and things like that, like or things that you're doing currently that aren't pleasing to Allah, right? So like these things will cause, I think they cause things that deter you from pursuing marriage because you're not comfortable with yourself, or while you're pursuing these things outwardly project, and your insecurities kind of hinder you from being able to find a spouse at that time, right? Not being comfortable with your status, right?
Like your class, socioeconomic status.
Not being comfortable in your own skin, right? These like issues with your confidence, things like that.
So you're saying like it makes it difficult for them to get married because they're not putting themselves out there because of these insecurities? Or like, what do you mean?
Even if they are putting themselves out there, right? It might still be difficult for you to find a spouse because you don't have confidence enough to kind of project yourself in a good way, right? Like you might be speaking with someone and they're just like, man, this guy's like the way you're communicating, because a lot of times you can kind of sense kind of like insecurities, right?
Oh, okay. So like that like lack of confidence is like clearly showing, which is turning people off from continuing like.
Or it could also not just turn people off, but it could cause you to think like, oh, he or she is thinking this about me. She's not even going to consider me because I'm not making enough money, right? Or something
it's
like that.
It's not funny.
Right?
Why am I laughing?
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's things like that, or like girls are like, oh man, I'm not in the best shape, right? It's like maybe he's not going to want me because I have, chubby face. Huh? What? Insecurities, man.
I guess. I mean, there's definitely people.
Yeah, that's funny, huh? Yeah, see, like the one thing about women that you can always expect, though, is that, they'll laugh at at insecurities of a male, but then, not do the same for the insecurities of the women, huh?
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I think what it all boils down to is fear, and fear can be expressed in like so many ways. Fear of being put in a position like your parents, and which is different from like a lot of men. A lot of men see the relationship that their mother and their father have, and they really romanticize it. And unfortunately, like, a lot of daughters see the reality of their relationship, which is like many of our like mothers or grandmothers, etc., stayed in a relationship because they had to, and
or they didn't stay in a relationship. You're in a single family household.
I mean, yeah, but a lot of them stayed in the marriage because they had to, I mean, some of them left and some of them were single mothers, but But stay in a relationship when like you feel like you have to, because you have no, financial stability, no education, so you can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of your children. So it's like the daughters grow up seeing their mothers, give service to a person that they have no connection with, a person who doesn't treat them the best. And all the son see is, wow, man, my mom's really, like serving my dad. Like that's like a real woman. That's what I want to marry. So it's like women don't want to be put in that position. And that's exactly what men want, because they never really, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them didn't really see the reality of like these relationships.
It's interesting that you say that, because the men and the families are the ones that are also encouraging the women at this time to pursue education, right, and have the ability to take care of themselves, right, and not be solely dependent on a man.
Yeah. But how many of these men are actually trying to pursue women who are educated? I mean, I
think the majority of women are educated nowadays. I definitely have heard of some men pursuing women who...
I mean, why men want women who don't want to pursue an education? I mean, they don't want her to be distracted. Like I've heard men say, I don't want my wife working, or I don't want a woman who's educated because, one, she's going to think she's better than me. Where does this even come from? Like, insecure. You're insecure. He's like, or I want her to be able to focus just on me. Like, the heck? What's she supposed to do while you're gone for 8 hours? Call you? Think about you all day? What is she supposed to do? We should talk about that, because I got some words. I got some words. But yeah.
All right, so we came up... So at the end of the day, I think Q&A came up with five different root causes for...
Are these the 5 that you talked about?
5, including what you said.
I said fear, which covered, family dynamics and afraid of being put in the same situation. Fear of reliving childhood trauma, which is very similar, but, in this situation, seeing like, divorce and broken homes and etc. Fear that you are not going to marry someone who is religiously compatible. Fear that the person you do end up marrying is a narcissist. And then it's like, dang, you married a narcissist, Why'd you look at me like that?
No, I think you're just talking about your fears.
No, I'm just saying these are fears. Okay.
You do it on Instagram and TikTok, or? Yeah,
but these screenshots are just from Instagram. So the question was, why do you think people nowadays are having so much trouble finding a spouse? A lot of people said trust issues, and people cheat, and marriage is not as important as it used to be. Other people said like sex is so easy to get that people don't feel the need to be married. And I was like,
another thing is like, a lot of people like comment to that. I've heard that a lot of people use the marriage sites to kind of like hunt for sex and stuff like that. So
yeah, they do.
Let people watch out for that, because there's some weirdos out here that are just trying to
be intimate with you.
Yeah.
Like, why pursue it on a Muslim web? I don't even know. Anyway, it says, I think women feel that crunch more than men, so women feel the need to get married while men aren't really feeling that pressure. Like, which goes back to what you said, like men having options.
Men literally, like, some men actually, I mean, there are men, like, in their 30s, like, people start to feel it, like, man, I feel like I should get married, but that's because everyone around you is getting married. But, I see a lot of people marrying people, a lot of men that are marrying women in my age group, which is 30, that are like, they look like they're like 45, maybe like 48 years old. So these are like old dudes, So it's like, they're like, men do have less pressure. Like it would be, it's a lot easier for a man who's like 45 years old to marry a 25-year-old versus, versus, a 45-year-old woman to marry, someone who's, even 30. So
another reoccurring theme was that people feel like both parties are unwilling to compromise. Women and men are unable to come together and reach, a balance between what they are willing to give up and what they are willing to accept from a partner. People basically saying that everyone's coming into marriage with this selfish mentality, like it's all about me, all about my needs. I don't care about you. You need to conform to what I want.
Yeah, I think.
Which I definitely see that in some cases. Like, I don't really think that's a huge thing.
I think it's because we are. I mean, Islam encourages you to get married early, right? But because we're waiting so late into in our stages of in our age and education, right? We get to this point where you know exactly who you are, right? There's not much more development that you have to do besides learning to really deal with a spouse, right? So I think at that stage it's more difficult for you because you'll butt heads more. I think that you would butt heads more because you're more set in your ways.
I mean, it makes sense. And then someone says guys aren't ready. A side note: majority of my responses are from women because the majority of my audience is women. One said, well, for men, sometimes we're too picky. For women, is that they wait too long. They want to finish school, so by the time they're ready, it's too late.
He?
That's a he.
Like I said,
and that goes back to what we were saying, that men don't want women who have higher education. I'm not gonna say all men, obviously. Some men.
I think that if you're pursuing an education, if you're able to find someone while you're pursuing education, I think that's good. Because there's a lot of marriages that work very well with people from the same colleges.
Oh yeah,
and things like that.
For sure. I don't think people should put their life on hold because they haven't finished their degree.
Right, but putting your life on hold now could make it more difficult for you in the future. Yeah. Especially if you find someone that you really like, because if you really like that person, and after 4 years, you may never see them again. Yeah,
I don't think people should put their life on hold because of, pursuing an education like college. High school, of course, you can wait. But like college...
High school, you should wait.
Yeah, you should wait. You're a kid. You're still a baby. But like college, you don't really have to put your life on hold for that. Women have more standards and they know their worth now. Societal beauty standards, people feeling like they don't fit that. Or being told they don't fit that, so they're not good enough to get married. The dunya has taken over hearts. Oh, another reoccurring theme was that Muslims in the U.S. are not practicing.
Yeah, actually, American Muslims are a lot more inclusive than Muslims in other countries, especially in the Middle East.
Yeah. If we're talking about like experiences that I personally had with Muslims staying away from like haram and like living a really halal lifestyle, it was always like American Muslims, and I'm talking about American for generations. Like,
I mean, there's good Muslims everywhere.
There's good Muslims everywhere, but this stereotype that for some reason American Muslims or Muslims in the U.S. aren't practicing. It's like, what masjid do you go to? Because it really bothers me. I'm like, as an American Muslim and a Muslim living in the U.S., like, we got a lot of good Muslims out here.
No, I think it's just that, it's just maybe because you think Americans don't have as many like generations of Islam, which in certain communities is true, but it doesn't mean that those Muslims are less than others.
Yeah, I mean, because let's not all like ignore the stories that we hear from other places.
Right. I mean, like I mean, to be honest with you, every like foreigner that came to America for college and things like that, they were probably some of the wildest Muslims that I've ever met in my life. All right.
But yeah, I hope we kind of talked about, or even just had like this discussion about, some of the various reasons why people feel, the pressure and like the hardship when it comes to finding a spouse nowadays.
Right.
I mean, there's so much we could have touched on.
Yeah.
So much we could have elaborated on. So much we could have talked about.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about this for, a number of days. Yeah. Sum it all up, we came up with 5 different root causes for having difficulties getting married. We mentioned culture, numbers, age and education, personal issues, and fear.
Yeah. So So thank you for watching. I'm glad you stayed till the end.
Like, comment, subscribe.
You're very hot.